Hi everyone, welcome to SWPL My Story, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Lisa Swanson. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. And I really appreciate you coming on. Obviously, you're not long retired. Fantastic career that you've had, known it all throughout the game, and it'll be good to get your insight on it because the period when you played, it went from really amateur level through to the much more professional game that we see today. So it'll be good to hear your take on it. So just to kick
Yeah.
us off, where was it you got started in football? How was it you got into it?
I've always played since I was a kid. I've always had a ball at my feet. I think my earliest memories when I was about 4 years old, playing football in the street with my brother and my cousins and that. So I've always played. My first team was Saltcoats United. It was a boys' team. I played there for a year. And again, that was just like my school pals I played with in that team. And then from then, I went to Kilmarnock under 13s. Spent about 3 years there, and then that's when I get noticed to go to Rangers back. That was a way back in like 2007. So that's how that kind of started. So I'd only ever played in the street really up until I was about 12. So that was my first team was like under 13 boys.
And obviously, it was a really transitional time. You're going to the mid 2000s when women's game was becoming more apparent. It was getting more coverage. Obviously, not where it is right now, but you were starting to know the names. Your Suzanne Grants, your Julie Fleetings, your Shelley Kerrs were starting to become names that were known to
Yeah.
people. So was there people that you looked up to from the women's side? Obviously, there was always male role models, but was there female role models for you?
Aye, so I grew up watching the players. So I did. So like Julie Fleeting was always one of like my favourite players ever. She's from like the kind of same area from me as well, down in Ayrshire. I've watched like Rhonda Jones, who ended up being my teammate at Rangers, Megan Snedden, who ended up being my teammate, Shelley Kerr, who I watched. So all these players, it was strange for me, like growing up watching these players and then playing against them in games and then having them as teammates. So I used to, I was like a proper women's football fan as a kid. So I watched them all.
So obviously you made your move to Rangers now. It's no secret you are a massive Rangers fan. And how was that for you and your family? It must have been like a proper pinch yourself moment. Maybe not so much at the time now that I mention it, being such a
Oh,
young
it
kid, but
was. It
looking
definitely
back.
was. I get picked up at so I was at a Scotland trial for I can't remember when it was. So I was at a Scotland trial and then I played really well that game and I don't always say that about myself. Like I'm quite critical. So I played in this game and I scored for like 25 yards out and it's probably the first time that my dad's ever watched me play and said you actually played well there. So that's how I knew myself. Like I've done all right. So I went back down the road, back to my nana's house, and I got a phone call, and it was a number that I didn't recognise. So I usually don't answer them, but I thought it was maybe somebody like for the Scotland squad or whatever, because straight after the game you found out whether you were in or not, and I found out I wasn't in. So I was obviously a bit gutted about that. So I went back down the road, and then I got a phone call, and it was this number. It came up and I answered it, and it was John McMonagle for Rangers phoning. He's like, "Oh, I seen you at the Scotland trial today. We've watched you a few times playing against our team when you were at Kilmarnock. He's like, can you come to Annie's Land tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning for like a 6 week trial kind of thing?" And I was just like, I don't even know where Annie's Land is. I've never heard of this place before. Like, I'm just a kid for Saltcoats. The furthest I've been to is like Ibrox. That's the furthest I've been to. So I didn't know like where Annie's Land was or anything about it. I was like, I'll be there. I'll be there. So that's basically how it started. I get the train up to Annie's Land, two trains for Saltcoats. I went away along to like the training ground and basically just trained for 6 weeks and then get kept on there. So it was like a kind of summer camp that they held
Mhm.
and they just kept the players that they wanted to keep basically. That's how it started for me. But even at that, like, oh, it was one of the best feelings in the world. Like, I'll never ever forget it. Remember just getting that phone call and then running through to tell my nan. I was like, that was Rangers. It was Rangers on the phone. Couldn't care less about Scotland at this point. Like Rangers was phoned, and that's basically how it started.
So you obviously you spent a long portion of your career at Rangers and obviously a time that you look back on fondly, but just pulling
Yeah.
that jersey on for the first time, making your debut? Like, how did that feel?
But honestly, like even like speaking about it, it's like it's strange because I've been a Rangers fan my whole life, loved and supported the club forever, and I was now part of Rangers Football Club as a player, and my family were so proud. Like we're all Rangers fans, majority of us anyway. We're all Rangers fans, and I remember I remember just like seeing how proud my nana was. She's been to Buckingham Palace before with my uncle Billy. Like he got an MBE for the Queen, and my nana got to go along and be part of that whole day. But me signing for Rangers was like right up there with that for her. That's just how much it means to us all.
Yeah, and you're the one that's in the moment, and you're just there. You're a player. Obviously, it means a lot, but seeing how that impacts on your family and how proud they are must have made the hairs in the back of your neck stand up. Really.
It was amazing. Like every single day, like so I was at Rangers for 11 years, and for 10 and a half of the years I couldn't drive. So I was up and down like 5 times a week on trains, buses. Now and then you'd get a lift to like your pals like who live nearby and things like that. But majority of the time like, I was on public transport up and down. It would take me like 2 hours to get there, 2 hours back, depending on train times or whatever. There's times I wouldn't get home at like 20 to 1 in the morning, just the way it worked out, like training times and things like that. So I think for me, I never took it for granted once. Like, I always appreciated like every day I was there, and I knew it could easily just be taken away from me as well. And I'd have like wee conversations with my nana and things like that, and she just by having the conversations, I'd like realise, no, this is massive. Like, you don't take this for granted because this can be taken away from you as quick as I got it. So I'm glad I've always kind of had that approach to it because it was 11 years, but it went past so fast.
And when you look at the way that Rangers are now, like fully professional, and this is why I like getting players that have been through the game through this transitional period on, because you can reflect on how different it is now. Obviously, it's changed for the better, but it's maybe not fully appreciated the sacrifices like you've just described. We've had other players on who are in the same position, but how
Yeah.
difficult it was to train at that elite level. You're still trying to train like a full-time player, but you're obviously
Yeah.
you've got jobs and you've got travel, and if you don't drive, you've got all these other implications. But you're doing it purely because you love the game, and obviously that your love for the club would have spurred you on as well.
Yeah. It's just like as I said, I'm a Rangers fan playing with Rangers, so like everything I done basically was to suit Rangers Football Club. Like, can I be at every training session? Can I be available for every game? So I didn't really start my career until I was 29, purely based on I played with Rangers, and so every job I kind of had was tailored around like the hours. I can't go for this job because it'll interfere with football, so I need to try another one. That was my life basically the whole time I was there.
So you went through your career. You said you spent 11 years at Rangers. Really, really happy time for you. But obviously, everything does come to an end.
Yeah,
How did that come about? Obviously, we're going to touch on your move abroad as well. But
yeah.
how did that all happen?
I went through like quite a difficult time. Like my nana passed away, and then the year later, my wee brother he took his own life. So I went. It was quite a difficult time. So I was seeing like the club doctor and things like that. I was seeing like a sports psychologist. So this is in amongst like going to work or college or whatever, and then training at night. I was like fitting all of this in between. So I just got to a point where I was like signed off everything, and like everything was good. I was back into training because there was times where I'd maybe be like 10 minutes late for training and like a Wednesday night because I was like I had a meeting or whatever. So all of that was done. I get signed off. Everything was fine. I was back in training, and then it was more so when I came back from Finland where things started to not go as well. So obviously I came back from Finland, so I just played like professional football for 3 months, and I came back and I spoke to the manager at the time, and I just felt that Celtic were miles ahead of us in terms of everything that they were doing. And for me, not even as a Rangers player, just as a Rangers fan, like for me that wasn't good enough. I felt we were miles behind. So I spoke to the manager about it, and the team were, like the Rangers women's team were doing a huddle at the time as well, which again, as a Rangers fan, never mind anything else, I was like, that doesn't happen here. Like, I understand, like I get it, it's a women's football thing, but at Rangers Football Club, that doesn't happen here. And I felt as if I was just kind of being viewed as like a bit of Rangers fan, to be honest. That's just how I felt. And then once I had that conversation about the huddle thing, and I was basically on the bench every week since then. And then it was brought up to me that why don't you go on loan? And then that's when I knew I was like, my time here is numbered. Like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to last here if I'm being sent on loan. So obviously I went to Kilmarnock on loan, and I did everything that I could. I basically won everything like within 8 games, and then I came back to the club and I was told, well, you should be doing that considering you're a Rangers player and you've dropped down a league. That was the answer I got. And then I was thinking to myself, well, why send me there then if it's still not going to be good enough? And then my mental health and everything was brought into it, which I didn't think was very fair because I'd obviously overcame a lot, and I was signed off everything. Like everyone was happy with me, like, and they wouldn't just sign me off just to get rid of me because I was there for like about 2 years basically. So like they were all happy with me, and then just to I was sitting in Ibrox that day, and just to hear it, or like the manager said to me, she's like, due to your mental health, I don't want to be responsible for you going on a downward spiral for not getting game time. That was the exact words to me. So in my head, I'm like, right, I'm not in the plans here at all. So that's how it kind of came to me leaving Rangers. It wasn't fully my decision, but there's no way I could have stayed in that environment.
Yes, a lot of the time you need to, as much as you've got a love and an affiliation with the club, you need to
Mhm.
do what's right for you and you personally, never mind the football side of things. So it then seen you on the move,
Yeah.
and then I'll let you lead us on. You had a few clubs after that before you returned to Kilmarnock.
So when I first was leaving Rangers, like I was just going to quit altogether. That's just, I suppose, a Rangers fan in me. Like, I didn't see myself playing with, like, signing for another club. Um, and I was with my pal Robert one night, and he's really good pals with Charlie Miller. So I was sitting with Charlie Miller and like, Andy McLaren and Bob Malcolm, and like Charlie's brother and cousin. So they've obviously they're like full time pros who've been there and done it, and been at Rangers and left Rangers. So they spoke to me for about a good 2 hours. Like they were basically on a night out in a pub, and they're giving their like 2 hours of their time to me, saying like don't give up. Like we've all been there. It's hard. Like, but you'll get through it. Like it's fine. Like Rangers isn't the end of the world, but for me it was. Um, so I had that conversation with them, and then I was like, right, okay. So I was thinking about it, and then Stuart Hall was my commandant manager at the time, and I was on loan. So he was all, like on the phone to me, like, "Are you going to sign? You're going to sign?" And I was like, "I probably will, to be fair, but I just need time because this is hard." Like, and people might not understand it, but for me, it was like the worst thing in the world that's just happened to me again. So I was already dealing with like everything else going on. So I remember I was sitting in the house one night, and like, so my nan and brother obviously both passed away. They were both born on the 13th, so August and December. So I was sitting one night just messing about my phone, and I was like, if I move team, I want to change my squad number. I don't want to, like, number 10 is my Rangers number. I don't want to move to another club and be number 10 again. So I was like, I wonder if I can get number 13, and then that way I'm playing for my nan and my brother as well. So I was sitting one night and I was like, I wonder what number Cloysty was when he played with Kilmarnock. So I googled it, and it came up, Ally McCoy's number 13. I was like, I'm phoning straight away. I was like, if you can give me number 13, I'll sign the now. And that's basically how it happened.
No, it's as I said, there's a lot to be said for like pushing on, especially as the game's professionalising,
Yeah.
trying to progress your career, but first and foremost, your own mental health, your own well-being needs to be at the forefront. And obviously I'm out with the game. I'm not affiliated with any club, and I'd like to think that that support network is better now. But it just again it shows the kind of progression within the game from all aspects, not just on the field.
Like the person who was probably like helped me the most in terms of manager wise was probably Kevin Murphy. Like he put a lot in place for me, and that opened up other avenues like for other players who were struggling as well. So he put me in touch with like Dr. Paul Jackson at the club and things like that. And I was seeing a sports psychologist, so like he did a lot for me. It was more Kevin rather than the club, but it was when Kev left and then like a new manager came in and she just, I don't know, I wasn't interested, I suppose.
So then you also had stints at Hearts and Motherwell as well. Was that good to get a change of environment? You've obviously been more west based and down in Ayrshire, but going and experiencing something different.
So again, like I could drive at this point, so that's why I could go to Hearts. So I was still living in Saltcoats at the time. So I was like driving through Edinburgh at night, and again it was Kev Murphy who took me there, who took me to Hearts, and then obviously COVID hit and things like that. So I couldn't really get like a decent run out at Hearts, and then when I was there, I got a new job, and it's like the career I'm in just now. So I moved back onto shift work and things like that. So it was impossible to commit because like I hate missing training. I can probably count on one hand how many training sessions I've missed like in my whole career. Um, so for me, I just couldn't commit. So I ended up having to leave Hearts. I didn't want to leave Hearts at the time. Like I was enjoying it there. But just like circumstances changed, COVID hit. I was starting a new career, which I should have done years ago, but I couldn't. So I just got to that point where I went to Hearts, and then Kev ended up leaving anyway. He went to Rangers, and then just because my circumstances changed, I then had to leave, and then I moved up this way. So it was easier for me to sign with Motherwell, and a lot of my friends were at Motherwell. One of my best pals, Chelsea's, who's still there as well, so that made it a wee bit easier. So I ended up going there for a wee while. And then again, I enjoyed like the team, but the football was just, I felt like I'm a striker and I was just sitting in the halfway line every week defending. So the football it didn't suit me. So it didn't, so I'm like, I keep busy, like I always want to press, always want to be, try to score. Obviously I'm a striker, that's what I want to do, but I just felt the football that we were playing at the time, like, didn't really suit me too well. So, and I was getting miserable. To be fair, like I enjoyed the team, I enjoyed like the teammates, being a part of that squad. But in terms of the football, and then again, I was still on shift work at the time, so sometimes I'd be working, and then my work would let me away early, and then I'd be turning up at half time and then going on. So it wasn't really practical either.
So then after your stint at Motherwell, it's seen you return to where it all started at Kilmarnock, and a really enjoyable time for you. You've seen out the rest of your playing career there. But now when you were returning, obviously you went back after Rangers briefly, but on your loan spell. But you're going in as a senior player, played at a high level. You've got younger players coming through there now looking up to you, whereas you were maybe that player earlier on in your career. So is that like a kind of position that you relish, that you try to pass on your knowledge and experience to the players coming through?
Yeah, in a way, like I don't know, I've never really, obviously I am, but I've never really considered myself like as a senior player. I don't, I just get involved the same as everyone else. I have the same banter with like one of the younger players as I do with one of the older players in the team. I never really seen myself as a player like, right, yous are looking up to me sort of thing. Never kind of viewed it that way, but in terms of me on the pitch, I, I'd say I probably take like more responsibility as a player. When I went back to Kilmarnock, like maybe if the team weren't doing too well or whatever, I try and take it upon myself to try and like get everyone going again and things like that. So I think in that sense, I'd maybe like view myself as a senior player on the pitch, but I'd never kind of look at players and be, oh, they look up to me kind of thing.
No, it's just one of those natural things that happens as you get older and you maybe take it for granted, but younger players will be watching you and seeing how you train, how you conduct yourself. And it's natural to you. But they're looking at your career that you've had, and as you're winding down and they're coming through, they're thinking, taking little bits of your game or how you train or different things that you do, and then
Yeah.
implement that into their game. So you're maybe not doing yourself enough justice there. So obviously you rounded off your career at Kilmarnock, and obviously a long career that you had, a really successful one as well. But
Yeah.
as you finished up, what would you say were the major differences from when you started in the women's game? I don't mean when you were coming through academy level, but when you were playing senior level, from when you first started to when you finished up.
Oh, it's completely different. So I went into women's football in 2008. So there was times where we'd still be training on like public parks and things like that. The times you turn up, and there's only like four at training, so you need to join in with under 17s. It's just so different. When I first started, well, in the under 17s, we had to pay £85 a month to play. Obviously the year after, when you get up to the women's team, you don't pay anything. But obviously it's night and day now. Like my pal Kathy, she's still at Rangers, so I've kind of got a wee insight into how things are. Like, and obviously when I played in Finland, like I know how it is to be a professional footballer, and I think that's why when I came back from Finland to see where the difference between Rangers and Celtic were, that's why I kind of voiced it. And I think like this should be better, but it's obviously a lot better now. They're full-time pro, so
No, absolutely, and it's as you said, it's night and day. But something that we always harp on about on here is probably in the last 5 years you've seen it totally change since the introduction of the SWPL, like one and two. I think it was
yeah,
2016 that came in. But then in the last 2 years, purely down to not just purely down to, but the finances that are getting brought in through the TV money since
yeah,
Sky came on board, and just the exposure that it's getting. And obviously you had Glasgow City miles out in front, then you had Rangers and Celtic renaming.
mhm,
You're now starting to see, one I spoke about was Hearts are really
yeah,
professional. Hibs have went full time as well, and then that for me that puts pressure on the teams that are further down, because if they want to get there, they're going to have to
mhm,
invest. And by putting pressure
yeah,
on, what I mean is the actual club at board level themselves. If
yeah,
they really want to do it, they need to invest the money. So they kind of put pressure on one another,
yeah,
to go down that route. So it's only going to create opportunities for girls that are coming through, particularly yourself,
yeah.
not just retired. I bet you wish you were starting your career now, and the opportunities that it
Definitely.
would bring you. Everyone that we bring on that's just retired says the same thing.
Yeah, but I know that Kilmarnock, like they've obviously when I went back, they were like players were getting full time, like it was like a full time contract on a part time basis kind of thing. So I know that Kilmarnock are like doing a lot of work just now, in the board as well. Like we had a few meetings with the board and things like that as a squad. So there's definitely plans at Kilmarnock, and I'm sure it's the same with other clubs as well.
Oh, that's brilliant, and I really appreciate you coming on today. It's always good to hear an insight, and particularly when someone's now out of the game, there's maybe things that you can touch
You
on
can
that
put your money in
you'd have probably
anymore.
shied away from during your career. But I really appreciate you coming on today, Lisa.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
And thanks everyone for joining us on SWPL My Story.